Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is still August 8th, 2016. This is the budget public hearing for fiscal year 2016-2017. Two things of business before we begin the meeting. Number one, if you have a cell phone, an iPad, small nuclear devices, or whatever's going to make a noise, please turn them off, defuse them, so we are not interrupted. That's number one. Number two, Morgan Gilraith's property appraiser's office will be open for valuation and exemption questions. So if you're listening to my voice on the internet or you're here in this chambers and you want to go talk to Morgan Gilraith's office, please go down there at this moment. If you're not here, you need to drive here, and you can get the valuation exemption questions answered today. So with that, it says here we're going to start off the resolution public hearing on the tentative budget and proposed millage rates for fiscal year 2016-17. Set date and time for final budget hearing. It says start off with Donna DePeister. Is this correct?
Actually, I'm going to do the introduction, Mr. Chair. Do you want to do it, Donna? No. All right, Donna's going to do it.
Quit fighting. Somebody do it.
Good evening, Donna DePeister, Deputy County Manager. Tammy Bong, our Budget Director, will be walking you through our budget presentation this evening, and with Mr. Deneen, who will make his comments along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Bong.
Good evening, council members and members of the public. Tammy Bong, Budget and Administrative Services Director. Today we're going to go over the budget hearing requirements that are in compliance with the Florida statute, the TRIM. I'm going to go through a few PowerPoint presentations, which will be a quick summary. I will read into the record, of course, the rates that we are going to be discussing tonight, and then of course, open it up to the public comment. The total operating budget is $697 million. Within that is your general fund, of course, which is your largest fund. Your ad valorem taxes in the general fund for fiscal year 16 was $164.3 million, and in 17, with the millage rate of 6.1 mils that we are presenting for your consideration tonight, is $169.9. That is a $5.6 million variance.
And of that $5.6 million, you'll see below, we'll go through where that money came from. And as you see, if we'd stayed at 6.3, we would have gotten in almost, it's about $11.5 million. In addition, if we'd stayed in that rate, we are going to partial rollback, which is the thing that we talked about before. And what you'll find is that in the end, in terms of new money through assessments, our new money through assessments, which would be actually, if you want to call it increased taxes, amounts to around 2%, which is about 3.3 million. We are going to return $6 million to the taxpayers. So we're going to return almost twice as much as we are going to keep. I think, as you know, last year we talked about this concept. We said we would try to do that if we could. In addition to what we are going to do here today, this is all still going to relate to the whole Go to Zero plan. Tammy?
Thank you. In a little bit more detail, as Mr. Deneen had referenced, the growth of the general fund was broken up into new construction. And new construction, of course, are for services rendered that are for primarily due to population and growth of the community.
Tammy, right, that was part of the discussion last time about partial rollback. Let's be real clear, okay? The new construction is taxes that you will get. I'm going to say this real clear so that the public understands this. This is money that we get from properties that we provide service to that we're not paying taxes because of when they came on the tax roll, because you're in the rears on taxes. So this is money that's not extra money to anybody that paid taxes last year. These are new residents that we are providing services to that their taxes caught up to the fact that they now have to pay for those services. So this is this is new money you get to provide services to new citizens, new properties. So it's no additional tax to anyone It's the new taxes you're owed from the new citizens for the services you already provide. So that's 2.3 million of the 5.6 million.
And then the next area is what we are calling governmental CPI. And that is equivalent to about 1.7% increase. So that is revenue needed in order to continue the same levels of services to operate the current government within the general fund. And that represents $3.5 million. And of that new allocation, we have 3% salary wage adjustment and, of course, the efforts towards our debt redemption for the Go to Zero effort.
If you noticed on how we are going to use our taxes, for the new, we thought we would do is show you to the council how this really actually works and where the money should go. The new money will be allocated to emergency medical, which is EVAC. Now, why is that? Because we have to add another crew because of the increased demand. Where does the increased demand come from? In a lot of cases, from new residents. Very smoothly goes right to the new construction. CRAs, your CRA costs went up. So you're passing along CRA money to the city. So that's not money that comes to us. That's new money that goes to the CRAs. The Sheriff's Office asked for, in terms of public safety, a deputy for crimes against children. As you know, that the Sheriff's Office has been very good, along with everyone else, in keeping our costs down and trying to be more efficient in eliminating positions. There is this position, and there's three or four other ones that I authorized in the Sheriff's Office where I thought they really needed the additional help. And this is one of them he really was interested in. And so I allocated money, and to be honest with you, I thought this related directly also to increased population. So we allocated it to the new taxes. And then Votran, specifically, the more ridership you get is because you got more people in the community. And as you know, we had to upgrade. This is existing routes, not new, we're not expanding, but to deal with the increased demand on the system. So we allocated that money now and into the future towards Votran. And as Tammy said, the CPI, which is the actual increase that we kept in the money in terms of the growth of property, is actually for the growth of the cost of government. And what we did is we put 3% for the wage adjustment for last year, and then for debt redemption, as you know, that's part of the Go to Zero. We took part of that money, which is $500,000, and put it towards debt redemption.
And some of the other things included within your budget, of course, are the things that we discussed in your 5-year forecast. So the budget under your consideration represents the long dialogue we've had on your mini budget workshops and your 5-year forecast. Your emergency reserves and all your major taxing funds have been maintained, of course. All of your taxing funds are meeting your state standard, which is your comparison to the state, except for, of course, your fire rescue, which we talked about that additional rate needed for those levels of service. And I wanted to go into the next slide, which is your millage rates. I'm going to just read these into the record before the dialogue so that everybody in the audience knows what the millage rates are under consideration tonight. Just, of course, a reminder, the millage rates can only go down. They cannot go up because they've been advertised to all of the homeowners, of course. Your general fund is presented today for your consideration at 6.1 mils. Your library fund is presented at 0.5520 mils. Your Volusia Forever, which is for your operating portion, is presented at 0.0930 mils. And your Volusia Echo is at 0.2. Of course, both of those are part of your voter referendum previously approved. Your Volusia Forever voted debt service, that's just to meet the requirements of the debt obligation you currently have in place, and that's at 0.1070 mils. Your East Volusia Mosquito Control District is presented at a flat rate at 0.18880 mils. Ponce-de-Leon Port Authority is presented at 0.0929 mils. Municipal Service District, which is your general governmental services for, in essence, a city, municipal type service, is at 2.2399 mils. And then of Silver Sands Bethune Beach MSD is at 0.0150 mils. And your fire district is, again, presented at your flat rate of 4.0815 mils. Your, I'm going to read you just to the record, of course, this will be your final action after we have a dialogue and public comment, but your operating budget is presented at $697,016,153. your non-operating budget's at $152,949,391. So at that, I would be happy to answer any questions or to
I'd like to add a couple of things to the conversation before we take public comment. As you noticed, as part of the plan, we went to the 6.1. We tried to do that. That's back there. This is Jason's hat.
You want me to read that disclaimer?
That's right. Yeah, the one where you said you not turn off your cell phones. Okay. As I mentioned, we really tried very hard when presented the 5-year plan because, as you know, I was trying to capture two things. One, keep our word about the partial rollback. And so I tried to put as low as we possibly could go. Also with the concept, which I don't think was anticipated at the time we talked about partial rollback, which was the whole Go to Zero plan. So those two things, so we tried to put the lowest rate to make it on those numbers. That's why we went to 6.1. All the other funds are flat. And actually in some cases, especially in the MSD and fire, it's a challenge to even stay at flat. Because as you know, those were never, the MSD has been always an artificially low rate to try and provide urban services to the unincorporated areas. In the fire district, we know the issues there. Actually, we had to raise it last year. We're trying to hang on to that rate. The other thing that this all includes in the Go to Zero plan was all of our capital issues that we have out there. The other thing was that, in fact, in terms of the capital, we had the Sheriff's Capital Project, which was the big one, and we also put in our money into economic development. And so over 2 years, so that we actually have investments there that will handle any opportunity that we might have come along for economic development, but in a way that won't affect negatively property taxpayers. And last but not least, I know the council, I've spent a lot of time talking to the council about what I call the dynamic master plan, because the question always comes up, and I felt that this was the year to do this, was what is the whole budget based on in terms of programs on what we do? Well, I've always known as manager over the last 10 years, I know all the stuff that we're responsible for, I know all the changes that have happened since I've been here with all the council members, and they're all listed within the requirements and the obligations and the objectives and the strategies within each department. But in all honesty, and it really originated out of a comment that Ms. Denny's made to me when we were talking about my valuation at the end of the year. She was very pleased with everything, but she said, well, how does it connect all these activities, because there's lots we did, with everything we do? And the light went off with me is, you know, what I've never done is I've never taken all the actual plan we have. We have a real plan. But this plan was the things that I inherited when I came here that were good, solid issues. But the real plan came from the last 10 years of council member after council member and meeting after meeting and all of the mini budgets on what we are planning on doing with our money. And it was not just the good times, but the bad times and how we reacted to those. And so what we did is, you know, I've been working with all of you. We put together this dynamic master plan. And while it's 99% complete, I've got to go through it mostly for just grammatical issues throughout the book. What I'm going to suggest is at our next meeting, which is really adoption of the budget, I'm going to submit that as a final, hoping that what we'll be able to do is make the dynamic master plan, the thing that is your plan, the thing I follow, that everything in this budget relates to, was in this book. Every activity we do, every issue, every policy you passed, it's here. And so that way you can connect, which I think will make it easier to say, why do you spend that money? I can show you either a goal, an activity. I can show you everything we do. It's all listed in here. It's always been there. We just never put it in one document. Here's the other thing. Why was it never in one document? Because it wasn't one of these artificial strategic plans that everybody hires a consultant to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to have all kinds of bubble diagrams that you set on a shelf so that the next council can automatically say, those people didn't know what they were doing, we're throwing that plan out and getting another consultant to write another plan, which nobody ever looks at. And in fact, most of the plans are the same plan over and over with a different name on them, but nobody knows because nobody reads them anyway. This really, that's truth. I've been doing this 41 years, I'll tell you, that's what happens. What this is,
You can actually Google that probably and just like then fill in the blanks,
That-
you know.
that's exactly it. What we did is, this is what we, on the administrative side, have to implement based on what you voted on. This is the real stuff. So we decided that we'd put it all together. We spent the last year or so putting everything together, cross-referencing, and there's it's got a matrix, as I showed you in the back, that shows you everything we do and how it relates to all the three big goals that we have. And we also added the section with construction projects, which shows us everything we're doing and when we're going to do it and what the update is. What I want this to be is a living, that's why we call it the dynamic master plan. It's the thing, as Mr. Patterson would say, we'll be able to fight back after we get punched. In other words, this will be able to take a punch and we'll keep going. We'll be able to adjust. This is what we really use day to day. And then we thought that if we put the construction plan with it, that would be an element that would be part of the living document. And you know what that makes us do? Formally, quarterly, we'll look at this plan. So quarterly, if we want to modify something, add something, subtract something, or we make a change, we'll be able to highlight it in the plan that we actually use. And that plan is the basis of the budget. So what I'm going to suggest is that I'm going to request, this is what I follow, this is what you've told me to follow, this is what 17 different council members over 10 years told me to follow. I would like to suggest that if you adopt the budget, that we adopt this at the same time as the basis to reference back. If anybody asks you why you spend money, I can find every reason and all the things that we do in here and how it relates specifically to the money. I should have probably done that earlier, but to be honest with you, we're so busy doing the job that sometimes you don't think about pulling it all together. And it was a comment that Ms. Denny said that really, the light went off me. Maybe I ought to put it all in one place. We have it up here, but now we got it in one place. I think it'll work better for everybody. I think also what's good about that is, if anyone says that they want to see what we do, we'll show them. We're not going to start from ground zero. If somebody wants to add something, subtract something, modify or whatever, let's go to the plan and find out. If it's not here, then we need to add it. But if we're doing something, let's get credit for what we're doing. This is the ultimate get credit for what we're doing, because I don't think we've done a good enough job selling. She's right, we haven't sold ourselves well enough. This, I think, has everything in it. So I want to put that as part of the plan to be adopted in the next meeting. I'll have your final books to you. You've seen it, you reviewed it, but you reviewed it in draft. I'll have the final document to you, if you'd so choose. I think it's the basis of what I'm bringing forward to you today as a budget.
Do you have anything else, Ms. Bone?
Just here to answer any other questions.
Okay, is there any questions from the council? Okay, is there any other staff report? Seeing none. All right, we will now call your name one at a time. Let me get my disclaimer. I'd like to read the disclaimer. See, now I can read the disclaimer, Josh.
Emphasize the phone part.
You know, there is no phone part in here. I will, but there isn't one.
I'm messing with you.
Yeah, no, it's a new cell phone. What can I tell you? I thought I turned it off. I apologize publicly. My what?
It is late today.
All right, here we go. The Volusia County Council welcomes your involvement and is interested in hearing your comments. Please complete the public participation slip and indicate in the subject line the issue you wish to address. You may use the back if necessary. After you're recognized, state your name and address for the record before beginning your comments. You may speak up to 3 minutes. The County Council does not answer questions or requests during the public participation. Please be courteous and respectful of the views of others. Personal attack on council members, county staff, or members of the public will not be tolerated. We all know the rules now. See, no telephone thing in there. So. All right, Smith Cameron. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call your name. If you're able to come up and walk up, I'd like you to sit in the front row, please, so that way we can you can come right up to the microphone though, Mr. Cameron. Joe Sullivan, come on up front, sir, please. Andrew Macco, where you at? Oh, you can stay, well, you might wanna come around. Ray Figueroa, where you at, Ray? You're good there. Doug, I see you, Doug Hall. And Mary Ellen Ottman, I see, where are you at, Mary Ellen? Okay, you're good there. We'll bring a microphone to you. And Nancy Burgess Hall. Oh, you're good. And one moment. Okay, and if you'll just have a seat for 1 minute, the manager, oh, you can stay right there. Oh, sir, Mr. Cameron,
You can stay right there.
stay right there.
There is one thing I forgot to add, which I think is important, especially as we have everybody here and they want to speak to the budget. Because I think this is another misunderstanding. Okay, there's 67 counties. This budget this year at 6.1 will make us the 44th lowest rate in the state of Florida of all 67 counties for the county government. I mean, a lot of times you hear all this stuff about we're number one. We only control the county government. Our county government, even though it's an urban government, is 44th. This will make us 44th lowest.
But you've got to tell the rest of that story, because I just had this the other day in a very public forum, but your number two, Volusia County is number 2 in the state for taxes. Well, that is a true statement only if you add the municipalities in it, you add all the other taxing districts, the hospital taxing district, and every other district in it. But just the portion that Volusia County general government funds and we are responsible for, and we're going to vote on tonight, we're number 44 out of 67. That's critical. It's when you add all those other elements to it that it may rise to number 2. Hopefully it'll drop to number 3 at some point.
Well,
we can't control what
no.
the other taxing authorities do.
And to be clear, it's the rate. Even with Volusia County having the second highest tax rate, in rate, they're about in the middle for dollars collected. It has everything to do with value of property. In other words, you could have a lower rate, but if your property values are a lot higher, you can collect a lot of money. The per capita money people pay, we're about in the middle of the state. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're clear. Mr. Cameron,
Okay.
I would love to know your address,
1019 Valley Forge Road.
and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Smith Cameron. I was invited to speak for a couple of minutes this evening by the Volusia County Veterans Service Office. I've lived in the land a little over 20 years, very familiar with the community, very happy here, married, retired. I served with the 1st United States Air Cavalry in the Republic of Vietnam as a 19-year-old. And I was one of those individuals who ended up participating in some very stressful circumstances. 40-plus years after the fact, I did not realize I had any veterans benefits coming to me until someone told me to contact this local office. I had called the VA to set up an initial appointment with them to try to get something started on my behalf in regards to potential benefits. The VA told me it would be just about a year before I could have my first interview. I was very frustrated. I had heard that it was going to be a challenge. So I'm a fairly resourceful individual, and I did what I thought I could do on my own until someone referred me to your local veterans office here. And I was introduced to Sergeant Jeff Bum, who is in the audience today. And from that point forward, I'll try to make an analogy. I gave Jeff this big lead ball. It had VA stamped on it and just dropped it on his desk. And I was still skeptical. But after talking with Jeff initially, he was so welcoming and so reassuring that I thought, well, maybe this will be the way for me to go. And from that point forward, being just one of 70,000 vets in this county, on my behalf, Jeff and his staff, to my amazement, every time I went there, it was as if I was part of their family. And they worked very hard with a lot of diligence on getting me benefits that I had coming that I did not realize. It was amazing, okay? I don't have a lot of faith in government agencies because I'd never dealt with them. I'd always heard that it's very challenging. But the Volusia County Veteran Services Office, they're just good, hardworking folks, and their efforts are very, very effective for the veterans in this county. And I am so appreciative for what they have done for me and others. And I can testify to you because I've had the experience, okay? Please, always have comprehensive funding for these folks. It is so vital, okay? As a veteran who, after the war, has slept under bridges and wandered aimlessly about and have had ghosts haunting me for a long time until I got with the VA and got some help, it is life-changing, and I appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service.
Hey, Mr. Cameron? Mr. Cameron? Welcome home, brother. Mr. Joe Sullivan. I gotta call you first.
Oh, okay.
Joe Sullivan. Getting better.
Joe Sullivan, 1780 Concert Road, Deltona, and thank you for your service. I mean, I started here at 8:30 this morning. I'm tired. This is a long day, so appreciate everything you guys do. I started this job 24 years ago with the Boys and Girls Club, and the county stepped up and helped fund us from the beginning. And at that time, the Daytona Beach metro area was the largest one in the nation that didn't have a Boys and Girls Club. And it's grown over time. We serve 1,700 kids at our 8 locations. But really, I'm here tonight to thank the county for considering the 3% increase to the CFAB, Children and Families Advisory Board. We're the lead agency for the after-school programs. It's really taught us how to work together and to help serve the community. So we and our 4 subs, which are the House Next Door, the YMCA, Great Kids Explorer Club, and Easter Seals, last year we proposed to serve 1,340 kids. We served 1,554. And the county funded 88,000 youth service hours. I mean, kids spent 88,000 hours in our sites. We don't all get all of our money from government, but this kind of partnership is what helps us. And we're everywhere. We're in Edgewater, New Smyrna. You can kind of count where the Boys and Girls Clubs and Ys are. We're all in different communities. We're all serving different kids. So this past year, so far through July, we've already served 1,485 kids, and kids have spent 83,000 hours in our clubs. So I know we never have enough money to do everything, and you know, that's why this is such a great public partnership. And I want to thank the council for this morning too, because coming to you guys to talk to you about helping us with the state, you speak the language. And you know, less than half of our money comes from government, and when the state pulls the rug out from under us, we have to start thinking about making some tough decisions. So as public servants, as a public entity, you guys make a big difference. I don't like to offend people from Florida. I'm not from here. I've lived here 30 years, so I don't care how they do it up north anymore. But the big challenge we have here, my mom raised me, but I had uncles and neighbors, and I was the 3rd generation. 2 out of 3 people in the state are from somewhere else. So a lot of those networks of support aren't there for kids. And you know how they determine how many prison beds they're going to need in the future? 3rd grade reading scores. We're not as much fun as we used to be. We help the kids with their homework every day. We try and keep them active, and this CFAB funding for us and the other partner agencies has been a great thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Oh, we don't have to applaud everybody. We'll be here all night. I'll tell you what, hold all your applause until after the final speaker, and then we can all applaud, okay? But if we do that, we'll be here all night. Andrew Macco. Is it Macco or Mako? Macco. Mr. Andrew Macco, may I have your name and address for the record?
Andrew Macco, 555 Morganwood Drive, DeLand.
Okay, sir, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I heard some different numbers here, and I understand the millage is going down 6.1, but you reappraise my home every year, and it goes up, even if I don't make any improvements. Volusia County, and I get this off the web, there's 3,600 counties in the United States, and Volusia County, tax-wise, overall, is 350. So because you reduced your rate, but you reappraised my house, it still goes up. Gasoline tax here in this county is 55 cents a gallon. I understand there was a proposal to increase it by a nickel. That was in the Beacon newspaper. I never saw a follow-up to that, so I don't know where that's at. I moved here from Maryland, and the home I sold was twice the value of the new home that I bought here. My taxes on that home, twice the value, was $2,900 a year. The home I have here, I pay $3,400 a year. That's quite a difference, and that's with my homestead tax break. And I know from looking at my deed and what have you, undeveloped property, when the builder's paying for it, it's taxed at a rate of about $50 per lot. Then that increases, they put a dwelling on it, and in my case, to $3,400. On Orange Camp Road and Martin Luther King Boulevard, there's approximately 500 new dwellings that are going up, so the county and everybody else is going to be getting from $25,000 a year to $1.7 million. If you take that over the entire county, there's a lot of money coming in. Median income here is about $30,000 a year, is that right? Okay. But that's pretty low. And I'm sure everybody here probably makes more than that. But public schools here in Volusia County aren't considered top-notch by any stretch of the imagination. And back in Maryland, my son's graduating class was about 400 students, and 92% of them went on to a four-year college. 5 of them were appointed to the Naval Academy. And how does Volusia County Schools measure up to that? My wife and I are retired, and therefore we live on a fixed income, and we can't afford to constantly have more money pulled out of our pocket. Higher taxes aren't conducive to businesses moving in. There's no Miami, Jacksonville, or Orlando in this county, yet our taxes are pretty high. So, that's it, I'm done.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Ray Figueroa, am I correct?
Thank you for this opportunity.
I
I
will-
am a,
Hold it, need your name and your address for the record.
All right. Ray Figueroa, 4922 Fawn Ridge Place, Sanford, Florida. I'm a landlord, and I own a property in your county, and I didn't buy any more properties here because of the taxes. And I have one simple question. I know you can't answer now, but what I'm here to do is hopefully you don't go to the other column. You have column 3, which is your approved, adopted budget. I'm asking that you stick with column 2. And the reason for that, I believe I had to give this to her. I did a spreadsheet. I don't know who wants it.
You have to give it to Marcy.
I'd like you to take a look at it. Basically, I know you raised my property value as a landlord 10%. I got no problem with that. But I also noticed that you've been raising my millage at a comparable rate. I've had no problem with that. But this new proposal, and if you look at the numbers, my property value has increased from when I bought it in 2012 from $87,951 to $7,500. That's a 128% increase. If you do not take this new proposal increase, that would be comparable to the tax increase that I've been paying, which is in the blue. If you go to the new proposal, Option 3, it's going to go to 31%. And I think you're going a little bit deeper than you should. If you take a look at what I have to pass on to my tenant, because I'm not going to absorb that expense, it goes from 2013, it was $14, not a big deal. You had a big increase in 14 to $58. Then in 2015, it was $7 increase. Hey, pretty good. The proposal, not the one you're trying to adopt, is $27. I accept that, but the new proposal is $40. I'm going to have to pass that cost to my tenant, who is then not going to be buying stuff in your community. I don't buy much here. I don't live here. But I'm not going to absorb the expense. I also understand that this county has a large percentage of investors like myself, who I'm sure are going to continue to do the same, since we're charged an increased amount of our rate as far as a value. So I would like the commission to consider not to increase our property values based on column 3 and stick to column 2. I know you do a lot of great things in this county, but there's times to cut back, and it shouldn't be at the expense of your taxpayers. I'm here without any kind of representation because I can't vote for any of you, but I have to pay your taxes. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Doug, this is where we need to have a seat, Doug. No, stay right there. Let's get you we'll bring you the microphone.
Thank you. Good. I'm Doug Hall. I live at 1405 Edgewater Road in Daytona Beach. And by the way, Jason, my phone is on mute, so it won't make any noise. Okay.
Point taken, sir.
Members of the county council, staff, and members, people in the audience, both here and at home, I am here to support the request from Votran for appropriate funding for our transportation system. I have lived here almost 40 years, actually 40 years and 2 months. And I've depended, as a blind person, I have depended on public transportation. Public transportation is critical to the economy and the growth and independence of the people that live here. Doesn't matter if they have a disability or just choose not to drive or can't drive. It's important for the economy. We need to consider that. I also want to talk a little bit about, I understand that Votran is requesting additional funds to be able to increase the frequency on routes 60 and 20, which are very heavily used routes. I've been on those buses. The buses are usually full. I believe that's probably, those 2 routes are probably 2 of the heaviest routes in the county. I understand Votran is asking, instead of once an hour, that the buses be every half hour. That's fine. I wish we could do that every place. But I realize there's a problem of money. So we do have to cut. Public transportation is very important to our community. I'd like to see more public transportation in West Volusia. It costs money. I'd like to see more transportation evenings. It costs money. Votran is trying to keep their costs down. I appreciate that. Frankly, I have no problem with spending more money for if I can get better transportation. You know, most people who drive like the independence of a car. But what they don't think about is the money that it costs to run that vehicle. Using the bus is a whole lot cheaper than driving a car. So I recommend that the county council properly fund Votran, our public transportation system. By the way, I chair the Access Committee of the Florida Council of the Blind, which is a state organization. And I'm constantly hearing from people, you live in Volusia County, you have no right to complain about transportation because Votran's one of the best in the state. And I want to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mary Ellen Ottman. Okay. You could just stand right there, Mary Ann.
Okay.
Need your name and your address?
Sure. My name is Mary Ellen Ottman, and I live at 203 South Orchard Street.
Okay, Mary Ellen.
in
here's-
Ormond Beach.
Okay, Mary Ellen, what we're going to do is, you have 3 minutes, and when we get down to 30 seconds, I'm going to let you know that you have 30 seconds left.
I hope I don't take 3 minutes.
Well,
First of all, I am the vice chair of the Volusia County, the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board, which is a subcommittee of the Transportation Planning Organization, the TPO. Actually, I guess our name now is the River to Sea TPO. And I'm here to ask that Votran be funded at the highest level possible. Although I chair that committee, I'm here to shamelessly plug, actually, for myself and other people like me. You all can see I have a guide dog, so I'm visually impaired. And my husband and I use both the fixed route buses, and they are wonderful, and also sometimes the Votran Gold when we can't get somewhere by the fixed route. The service is excellent given the dollars that are provided. Votran also are some very hard-working folk that really care and do their best to provide excellent service. What we should all realize is that when you fund transportation, it not only, though, helps people with disabilities like myself, but for every dollar that Votran spends on transportation, or actually that is spent on transportation, at least $6 to $7 are pumped back into the community by people going out to eat, doing shopping, buying products. And people who can't drive maybe but can work have the opportunity to work and to earn money and pay taxes back into the system. So thank you for your interest and letting me speak, and I'm very proud to be a resident of Volusia County.
thank you, ma'am. And there we go. Is it working? Okay. That's Nancy right there. Nancy Hall, this is yours.
Hello, good evening to everyone here, the county council, staff, and also everyone in attendance and possibly listening on TV.
I need your name and your address, ma'am, for the record.
C. Burgess Hall, 1405 Edgewater Road, Daytona Beach, Florida.
You got 3 minutes.
Okay. Anyway, I have a physical disability, as you can see. I'm also involved with Halifax Council of the Blind and a couple of the subcommittees of the River to Sea Transportation Planning Organization. I have, when I'm able to, I drive my own ramp van with from my own van, but there are times when my medical condition doesn't allow for it, or the van is in for repairs, and at those times I use Votran. I've used the fixed route when possible to be more money efficient for the county, but other times I have to use the paratransit. I also see students from the different colleges using it, people who have low income using it, and from being a lot of transportation workshops, I see and I observe that our roads are becoming much more congested. So I really feel that our society needs to start looking at more mass transportation. Votran, as my husband Doug Hall said, is a pretty good system in this state, but more people would use it, might choose to use it over their personal vehicles if there was more frequent service, and that it maybe went to more of a grid system or whatever. But in any case, we need to keep what we have. As far as the 60 route goes, I know myself, I've tried to board 60 before and other buses, and there's only 2 handicap spots for wheelchairs. When they are full, I have to wait that allotted time, whether it be an hour or whatever. So increasing 60 to every half hour would mean I wouldn't, if I had a meeting over here or whatever, or had to get back to Daytona, I might miss the meeting if I wasn't able to get on the 60-minute time period. So I really feel that we need to keep funding Votran, increase some of these highly used bus routes. And just keep in mind that if we had even better service, I think we'd be using less fuel and make it more efficient for our students, low income, and other people. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other public participation in this matter?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, very well. We will close public participation and move on to approval of village rates by fund. I guess that's where we're going. Okay. You have the floor.
If you would like, I would read into each of the millage rates. The millage rates have to be done by separate votes, of course, for tonight.
Can you hear?
Can you hear that?
No.
Pull it up a little bit more.
Okay.
Is that better?
No, yes. Yes, Josh. Oh, you want to make comments? Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Just to
We've
address-
never done this before, make comments on,
I like to sometimes, you guys have been lucky that pretty much every time you guys have been up here, it's been all positive comments. When I first started, there
hold
were a
on.
lot of negative.
Hold on. My first year.
That was the rough one?
That was a rough one.
No. maybe.
Very rough.
I'll give it to you. Just to, I appreciate everyone being here. This is something for us that we work on throughout the year. This is just kind of puts it all together in two meetings. Just a couple of things to address that I think is helpful since we're trying to have a good dialogue. You have to understand different taxing issues for different states, especially different counties. For example, Maryland, where you're retired from, has a state income tax of 2% at the first 1,000 and up to 5.75%, up to, it looks like, incomes exceeding 250,000. We don't have one. So, I can appreciate that. You have to understand that we don't have it. It's probably never going to come in. We are a retirement state. A lot of people retire here. One, cost of living is so low compared to up north. I'd like to see your up north taxes. I doubt they're half, but we'll know. You can show me later if you feel like it. But that state income tax is a huge difference. That extra penny, or the extra 5 cents you were talking about, that'd be illegal, so I know we can't do that. As far as the gas tax is concerned, that can't happen. But as far as the schools, I usually like to give information, and I don't talk down to people. Very rarely do I do that. I just don't. It's not in my nature. But I somewhat take offense to the whole thing about the high school with 400 kids, and they're all going to the Navy and all this stuff. My 5-year-old started kindergarten this year, and he goes to a public school, and his teacher I love. She's an amazing teacher. I went to public school here. I paid my way through law school, went to UF, which I think is a great law school. It was hard to get in. And I busted my chops, and I had a great education. I mean, it really is. I think I've done well for myself. I have friends that are doctors. I have friends that are designers, architects. We have a great school system here. You can't just say, here's 400 students and they did this. It's not fair. And honestly, statements like that it brings our community down. And I don't want to talk bad to you or talk down to you. I'm not trying to be that way, but you move here, try to be a little bit more respectful of our kids. Don't make them feel like by saying statements like that. It's kind of you go to a school, you're a second-class student. It doesn't seem right. I don't know. Someone has to stick up for the kids. I'm going to do it. I apologize, but I just took offense to that as a parent who has a kid in school, and also as someone who was educated in our public school system here. I think they do a good job. So that being said, as far as the real estate, it's market driven. There's nothing we can do. Trust me, I have real estate too. It's hard, but congratulations, your property value went up. I don't know if you're playing the rent game or the sell game, but I get it. It's hard. You got to talk to. We have 2 former state legislators here. We can only deal with the equations they give us, and I think that's what I wanted to talk about to everybody is. There are rules that we have to there are laws we have to follow for how we do our budgeting. We don't have the state income tax. We don't have these things that other places have. We have a property tax system, and that's what it is. I think my opinion is we've done an excellent job as a council. I'm going to support the budget, just so everybody knows. And the reason for that is over the past year, I feel like this county council has done an exceptional job of trimming where we can trim, making the hard decisions where the hard decisions have to be made, and that has been by the the work of our staff. I feel very, very comfortable with that. But I did want to mention, Jim, appreciate. I think it's a great document. I think this is something that I think a lot of it was brought up by you, Deb, and is definitely there as the core to it.
You mean the dynamic master plan?
The master plan. I think I've seen in my 8 years, this is my final budget, my final year, I've seen cities and I've seen even us do some things that just, even our strategic plan we got, and we had the chart and everything, it's hard to implement something that is not really attainable and it doesn't have substance and it's not real. The E-Zone master plan with Daytona, there's a perfect example of something that it's hard to do. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just, it sits on a shelf. And that plan was 2 other plans that take part 1, take part 2. It really is the same thing. I think this dynamic master plan makes sense. I think whatever we need to do to formalize that is moving forward. I don't know what the council needs to do, but having a set book of policies is important to build on. If it's building, if you later on want to subtract, whatever the council wants to do, I'd like us to take somewhat of a position to make this document somewhat legitimized as we do our budget, and it doesn't have to be right this second, but I think it's important for all of us to have something that future councils, and that's going to change soon, can build on. And I think having a document that they can read, it's almost like coming in and you think you know all these things, you've been asked all these questions, like, oh, I'm going to do this, and all these brilliant ideas, but you realize 5 years ago someone had the same idea and they've actually done it, and you just haven't seen it. So if you have this document and they can get in, it's almost like, get me up to date, and not, it's kind of like knowing the past. It's a lot easier to kind of move forward into the future. So if we can somewhat formalize that, so when, years down the road when Jim Deneen's retired and we're long gone, that document can be a living document that goes forward. So not saying you got to leave right now, Jim.
Is that the order it's going to happen? He's going to retire, and then we're gone, or we're gone, and then he retires?
I don't know. After he calls everyone the old council, I don't know what's going
Previous. I've changed that word to
Yes,
previous.
he said old in a couple years.
Yeah, he starts calling
I'm
this
too old to
council-
use old.
Yeah.
Now I
But
use previous.
how would you consider it, as far as we have not had this type of document, how would you envision us
What I
formalizing
see is that this is the basis of all the plans, all the 3 big goals, all the strategy that I base all my management and my budget on. So I'm basing it on this. I just never gave you it all in one place. For example, what you would see in the future, what I'd like you to do is, if you think this is the right way to go, this is what I use. Okay, this is it. This isn't like we invented. This is exactly what we're doing. It's throughout the organization, already on paper. And Marilyn Ford helped us and spent almost a year putting all this together. We didn't spend any money with any consultants, put it all together. It's all here. It's everything that the other councils have always approved. It's everything you've incrementally approved. And for example, when you have, like, the money I'm putting in, suggesting for economic development, it fits the goal of economic development. I can show you where it's at. On the Go to Zero, the Go to Zero is in this book now. So the capital plan that you wanted, it's in the book now. So everything that we do, especially when I do the budget, I want to be able to relate it back to the plan. And then I think it's healthier if someone comes in, for example, wants to talk about community services and the strategy we used. It's in here on why we're funding what we fund, and not only what we're trying to achieve, but how we're trying to achieve it. It's all there. I just never put it into one document. And so I've assumed, and quite frankly, the council has too, the longer you've been here, you start to really understand it all. I've assumed it, and so to speak, you know it. It's all there, but I never put it in one document. It's all in one document. So I think that, quite frankly, it'll be healthy if someone wants us to add something or subtract something, change something. You're going to have the basis of what we actually follow today as a working document. And quite frankly, I think it's, honestly, I think Joyce said something today that I think really resonated with me. And that was, we were breaking new ground. We're becoming the model for people on different things that we do with healthcare. Nobody does what I'm doing here, which is what I should have done, and the light went off, is the master plan that we're doing should be with the budget. It's not separate. What good is a plan that doesn't have any money in it? So the bottom line is what maybe we're breaking the mold and doing something new. And I want the plan to be something that's workable and something you all agree to. The other thing that I resent is people act like you can come in when you're new and start all over again. It's all incremental in life. You're not going to zero on how we run the jail. Come on. You can make changes on how you want to do it, adding capital, moving things, change. Well, that would be a modification of the plan, but we should have a plan for the jail. This has all the plans in it. It relates to the money, and I think the best time, and sort of like Joyce would say, maybe we start a new model, is that we would have, our budget would be connected to our master plan. I use the word dynamic master plan. I want to get away from that old strategic term, because I think in a lot of cases that's yesterday's thinking. Dynamic is all about change, and there's a time what I would like to do also, sort of a side note, especially when we do the go to zero and we adopt the budget and everything. I really, if the council would allow me, I'd really like to have a lunch one time with the previous council members, because I think a lot of what we do today all happened from, it's sort of like the infrastructure we use today, somebody built a long time ago. We're all living on people who paid it forward. That's exactly what's happening with all the stuff that we have today. And our responsibility is to keep paying it forward for somebody else. But I think it's respectful of the other council members that sat up here and made the tough decisions. Like people came up about community services. During the downturn, one of the hardest things of all was not cutting community services completely out and laying people off and things we didn't do. And we didn't do that because the council said, we got a policy, we're not going to do that. That's in here. And so what I'd like to do is legitimize it as part of what I hand you from the budget, that this is my basis for my budget.
That works.
Okay.
Josh, Joyce and I really appreciate you calling us out for something. I guess we thought maybe we still trying to figure out what we did. But you
I
called
need
us
your
out.
microphone on, please.
He did it on purpose.
Yeah, it's on.
It's on.
Just wanted to notice that.
I appreciate both of you.
I would say amen to Representative Patterson.
Okay, Ms. Bong. Unless there's further council comment, which I don't see. Mr. Patterson, you hit the button. Okay, you're just getting ready. Okay. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. For your consider tonight is I'm going to read each of the millage, each of the taxing funds, and of course look for your motion. The general fund is being presented today for your consideration at a millage rate of 6.1 mils, which is 1.8% greater than the rollback rate.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Motion for approval from Mr. Wagner. Do I hear a second? Second by Ms. Kuzak. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So carried. Unanimous, and unanimous tonight means 6-0.
The next fund is your library fund is at 0.5520 mils, which is 5.8% greater than the rollback rate.
Move approval.
Motion for approval from Mr. Wagner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lowry. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So carried.
The next one is your Volusia Forever operating fund. This is at 0.0930 mils, which is 32.9% greater than the rollback rate.
Move approval.
Motion for approval from Mr. Wagner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Kuzak is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So carried unanimous.
The following support, part of that is your Volusia Forever voted debt service. In order to meet your debt service requirements, it's presented at 0.1070 mils.
Move approval.
Motion for approval by Mr. Wagner.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Lowry. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So carried unanimous.
Your next fund is your Volusia Echo Fund, which is presented at your voter referendum rate of 0.20 mils, which is 5.6 greater than the rollback rate.
Move approval.
Motion for approval by Ms. Kuzak. Do I hear a second? Mr. Wagner's the second. Okay, further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, so carried unanimous.
Presented for your consideration is your East Volusia Mosquito Control District. It is presented at .1880 mils at 5.9% greater than the rollback rate.
Do I hear a motion for approval?
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Ms. Cusack. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and so carried. Unanimous.
Your next tax and authority presented for your consideration is your Ponce de Leon Inlet and Port District Fund, which is presented at .0929 mils, which is 5.8% greater than the rollback rate.
Motion for approval. Do I hear one?
Approval, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Second by Mr. Wagner. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye. All those opposed, so carried unanimous.
Your next one is your Municipal Service District Taxing Fund, which is presented at 2.2399 mils, which is 4.7% greater than the rollback rate.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Motion for approval from Mr. Patterson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wagner. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, so carried unanimous.
Your next fund is your Silver Sands Bethune Beach Fund. It's presented at .0150 mils at 7.1% greater than the rollback rate.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Motion for approval from Mr. Patterson and second by Mr. Lowry. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, so carried.
Presented for your consideration is your Fire Rescue District Fund. It's presented at 4.0815 mils, which is 4.7% greater than the rollback rate.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to give it to Mr. Lowry. Mr. Lowry has the motion for approval. Do I hear a second? I hear a second from Ms. Cusack. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye. All those opposed, so carried unanimous. And the previous was also a unanimous vote.
Thank you. For your consideration tonight is your budget. It is with the corresponding resolutions and the detailed budget by fund presented in your packet this evening. It is for your tentative operating budget totaling $697,016,153 and your non-operating budget of $152,949,391.
Okay. So,
Move approval.
go ahead.
Approval of the budget.
Yes, would be approval of the budget.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Wagner's motion for approval. Second.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to give it to Ms. Dennis this time.
Does that include the non-operating budget?
Do them in one, I believe.
No, it's both.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, she did read both, operating and operating. Any further questions? Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed.
And the last part
So
of
carried unanimous. Now you may go.
Okay, the last part for this evening's consideration is your second public hearing, which we will be advertising in general circulation. We are requesting permission to do Thursday, September 22nd at 6 p.m. in these chambers.
There's a request for September 22nd, 2016, 6 p.m. for our second public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the September 22nd, 2016, 6 p.m. date for the public hearing.
Motion for approval by Mr. Patterson. Mr. Lowry is the second. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye. All those opposed.
And that concludes your
So
trail
carried.
requirements for this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any further?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I would like to make, I am going to suggest something unusual. After you get done with the hearing, I'd like to talk to Mr. Mako myself, because I went over his taxes, and it appears to me that his taxes, because I don't understand this, taxes should have went down, it appears that they went down. So I'm going to take a look at it with him and make sure that we're reading it correctly. And I'll report back to the council. Because I know what we're doing, and I know how we've been trimming, so I want to look into that, okay?
Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Mako? Okay, very well. This gentleman, which one? Mr. Wagner? Oh, Mr. Wagner? Well, that would be up between you and him. Okay.
And yet, the answer is yes.
Huh?
I was telling him yes.
Oh, okay.
I do have 2 comments, if it's okay.
Well, no, you've already had your comments.
Well, now it's, I think we should
Go
form,
ahead.
one thing I think we should consider, one way we could do it, even though it's not a requirement, if at the second meeting, maybe, at every a budget hearing, it would be nice to formalize this document. I think if you do that once a year, specifically bring it up, I think that's a good idea, even though it's not required by state law. I think it will always have it on the council's mind, and future councils can stop doing it, but I think if you start doing that and bring it up specifically, it will keep it alive. If you don't do something like that, sometimes things have a tendency to die off.
Actually, Josh, I think that's a great idea because it will be updated quarterly just when we get an update on the capital improvement projects on that back tab. But as I was thinking about this, it's becoming a flow chart. It's not so much as what's in it, what is, but what's not in it. So in other words, it's all the asks and the requests. We talk about that hopper effect. This is what's in the hopper now. You want to put another project in there. Well, where does it fit?
Yeah.
Does it fit? And does it affect the bottom line and the go to zero and the outcomes that have been approved and researched and been found fiscally sound? So I think this, what I would like to do actually, as I'm thinking about this, is I'm going to keep one here at the dais. I'm going to ask my assistant to make sure she brings it down for each meeting as a reference. And I'm going to keep one in my home office too. So I'm going to ask her to make another one with the final draft. But I think it really does become a guiding document going forward.
Right. A good example of how this would work as a living document. If, for example, you would say, what are we doing in economic development, or what have we done, or where are we spending our money? You'd flip to the index in economic development. It'll show you exactly where we spent money, like for Trader Joe's or whatever. It'll show you where we're spending money. It'll show you, for example, all the things like on the JetBlue and so you'll have it all there. So if you say you want to change something, you got to look at what we're doing. Because if you don't, people say, well, you're not doing anything. Well, wait a minute. I can show you the cross-reference of all the things we're doing. And what I didn't do was I never put it in one working document like that, and because it's very luminous. I mean, it's a lot of stuff. I like the idea. I think that what I'm saying is, for me, it is the document I use. It's the rules I go by. By you saying at the end of the year, you're sort of accepting my budget, and you're accepting the plan, which is your plan, that I'm following to do your budget. And then I do like the idea, see, to make it dynamic, we're going to at least quarterly deal with any changes formally on the construction, which is in part of it. And then what we would do is anything the council would do, if, for example, let's take, for example, the issue where we did Hope Place. Hope Place was not in the plan. So what we would be doing, it's in the plan now. We would be telling you, and I think that's what Deb's getting at, we would be telling you, okay, you made a choice. I'd be showing where the money came from, but I would be showing you where Hope Place is now in the plan.
Well, and here's the other piece to that. Here's going to be our first challenge. On the extra $1.6 million for Turnbull Bay Bridge, I was speaking with Mr. Britton after our discussion. If we don't find those dollars, if we can't partner with TPO, we're going to have to look at which project, council, which project under these categories is that money going to come from? Is it coming from Howland? Is it coming, where is that money coming from? There's going to be tough decisions, and it's going to be at this desk, at this dais. So we have an opportunity to make sure we procure and secure that funding, because if not, this will have an immediate dynamic impact on infrastructure in Volusia County on those listed projects. A decision will have to be made.
You'd make a conscious decision to not do a project or do something different. There's an implication to every, I never like that term, I don't use the term find money. Everything's an implication of where you do trade-offs. And what happens is if you don't have the book in front of you, people forget about the trade-offs. But yeah, Josh, I appreciate your comment. I think if we could do it that way, you saw the whole document. I'm making some word changes in it, just grammatical errors and things. I'll have it to you in a formally for you ahead of time before the next meeting on the 22nd.
All right, and then I had one other comment. It came out wrong. I hope I didn't mean it. I never would put down another council member, especially someone who held public office. I respect anyone who's served, even if I didn't like their philosophy. I actually, what I meant was when I talked about the two
Thanks,
former
Josh.
state reps, is that they create the equation, and we have to live in it because they're daddy and we're the little guys down here that have to follow their law. But I didn't want to come across. I absolutely respect both of them for doing what they did. I didn't mean it
You're
like that.
drowning here. You're drowning.
I got to buy them both a drink. One's gonna be one.
There you go.
Drinks on me later. Sorry for that. I didn't.
The
mean
wall
that
just
way.
got higher.
Mr. Lowry.
Just very quickly, I want to emphasize once again the go to zero. Mr. Deneen and I have had talks. He knows my feeling on that. And by eliminating that debt, it does a couple things. First of all, it protects us in case there's any kind of a mini downturn or a major downturn. But also it opens up potential. We never know what might come along where if we've got a lot of debt, we're hamstrung, we can't move. It's like trying to buy a house, but your dream house, but you already owe so much money in other areas you can't move. And I'm excited about that. Plus the rollback makes me happy too. So anyway.
Well, thank you. I feel good about the fact that maybe Mr. Escudero will be here next time. He talked the first time on the no, he was here with the 5-year plan. He was here with a 5-year plan. But I think there was a question about, was I serious about, can we give money back and roll back and only keep that, which was the actual increase to the cost. I can't help but the increase was to the cost. It's only 2% to us, okay? And so I felt glad about that. I think the go to zero was just a different level, kicked it up a notch. Mr. Lowry's right. In an uncertain world, the best thing you can do is limit your expenditures, and your exposure, which is debt. The second thing is there's nothing wrong with debt if you do it the right way. My only issue on general fund debt was I think we ought to save it for the big things.
Exactly.
And if the right opportunity came along that could mean big difference in jobs in this community, because the state is not there now. The state has abandoned their fund for incentivizing businesses to be here. And you would hate to have missed out on the opportunity of a lifetime, right, Mr. Lowry? If maybe it would have made more sense for us if we were able to fund something. And so I think having that flexibility is important. And as Ms. Denny said, every time we make a change, we'll refer it back to the document. But we'll also have, I would think the council would feel better that I just gave you a book that instead of just numbers, the go to zeros in the book. Because you have it. You have the plan that we're going to do that. Not just a number and a concept. Josh, I appreciate you bringing that up. I really would like to do it that way. I appreciate all the comments from the council when I talked to you individually about this. And I found nothing but support from everybody. And we'll be ready on the 22nd.
Very well. Unless there's further comment, our next county council meeting will be September 22nd. Start here at 8:30 in the morning for public comment, 9 o'clock for council meeting, and 6 p.m. on the 22nd of September for the final budget hearing. Is there any objection to adjournment? Seeing none? We are adjourned. What, sir?
There was another item to appoint people. Did you all do
We already did that.
Okay.
You're 6 hours late. We are adjourned.
I've heard that